Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101. A little bit late. We pushed it because of the weight challenge, but we're still doing it, of course, because it's one of the biggest movies of all time, of our generation, The Breakfast Club, 40 years ago. 40 years ago that movie came out, so it is time for Case's movie review.
For Christ's sake, tomorrow's the 4th of July, and we will be open for business.
What country you from? What? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
Utah. Give me 2.
Do you enjoy pain?
Pain don't hurt.
Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand.
Now fry like bacon, you little freshman piggies. Fry! Fry!
Playing football at West Canaan may have been the opportunity of your lifetime. But I don't want your life.
All right, let's go. The Breakfast Club. 40 years ago this week it was released. One of the most iconic movies from John Hughes, who, of course, based all his movies in Chicago and loved the city. And they were all his movies, every one of them. You know, if you go through the list of Home Alone and Vacation and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Trains, Trains, and Automobiles. But they really were like a kind of a postcard to Chicago, his movies. Died way too young. A great man, John Hughes. And Case, here we are with The Breakfast Club. And people have been waiting for this one. People have recommended this one since we started doing this.
I've heard from more people over the last 24 hours because every Thursday night I post on my Instagram story what movie I'm going to be watching the next day. And the amount of people that reached out that said they don't believe me that I haven't seen this movie before. They can't believe that I haven't seen this movie before. I had no idea what it was about. I had never seen it. I really had no knowledge of it other than just knowing the movie poster because it's burned into all of our brains. But to celebrate 40 years of the premiere, which was today 40 years ago, I watched The Breakfast Club. Brian, let's start, as we always do, with the trailer.
Let's do it. Here we go.
A brain, a beauty, a jock, a rebel, and a recluse.
Can't believe this is really happening to me.
Before this day is over, they'll break the rules.
Chicks cannot hold their smoke. That's what it is.
Bare their souls.
I'm a nymphomaniac.
Are your parents aware of this?
Take some chances.
Being bad feels pretty good, huh?
And touch each other in a way they never dreamed possible.
Why'd you do that?
Because I knew you wouldn't.
The Breakfast Club. They only met once,
I don't want to be alone anymore.
You don't have to be.
but it changed their lives forever.
Man, I consider you guys my friends. I'm not wrong, am I?
Universal Pictures presents Emilio Estevez, Paul Gleason, Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, and Ali Sheedy in a John Hughes film, The Breakfast Club.
Wow, a minute-long trailer was unusual.
It was a good trailer.
It's a really good trailer.
I felt like I understood what was going to happen.
Uh-huh.
And before we get into it, because I love this movie to death, and Kenzie, do you love this movie?
Yeah, I always loved The Breakfast Club. I thought it was, it's probably out of the ones that Case has reviewed, besides The Mummy, I've probably seen it the most.
Mummy 1.
Mummy number 1.
Breakfast Club 2.
Because it's on a lot, too. It's one of those ones that you, catch a lot of glimpses of,
Yes.
So I feel like I've seen it probably the most out of any of them.
You'll always watch a little bit of it at The Breakfast Club.
Yeah, it's easy watching in, a good way.
So as we said, this movie premiered in Los Angeles February 7th, 1985, 40 years ago today. The budget was $1 million. And it made $51 million, which is an incredible percentage.
Woo!
Movies today cost $100 million to make. Entertainment Weekly ranked the film number 1 on its list of the 50 best high school movies. Let's see what Case rates this movie as.
The beautiful thing about this movie is that it so accurately describes what we have all been through, whether it was Jesus or Judd Nelson or Brian or Kenzie or me or you. We have all experienced what it is like to be a teenager and how hard it is to be a teenager. And I think society, unfortunately, more often than not, is mean to teens. People grow up, they lose their ways. It's like the janitor said to the principal, they haven't changed, you have. And what I love about this movie is the emotional aspect, the emotional roller coaster of what it's like being a teenager, because I put myself in the shoes of all these characters, and I think everybody, you can do that as well. You know everybody in this movie, okay? You went to school with a Bender and with a Claire, with an Andrew, and with a Brian, and with an Allison, and it was just so enjoyable for one afternoon to put myself back in these shoes and think about myself in this scenario and how I was like. And in all seriousness, I was a very mentally unwell teen. You know, I battled.
Let's not turn this into a therapy session.
Brian, it's part of my review.
Okay, Brian, also not appropriate to say when someone talks about their mental health. You don't interject and say that.
I had a very easy upbringing. I had parents that loved me and took care of me, but I was fighting my own fights internally. And watching the characters in this movie and thinking about, I knew a Bender and I knew an Allison and I knew a Claire, and I myself felt like Brian, the character in this movie, more so than any of them. God, what a refreshing thing this was to view through the eyes of somebody who hadn't watched this movie in high school. I watched this at 25 for the first time. That all I found to be very heartwarming. This is a tried and true teen movie, and I am all for that.
Well, that's good to hear, because I was worried that you were going to trash it for some reason. I'm sure you have some points you don't like, but I really do think that it doesn't matter. You said it perfectly. Everybody can relate to everybody in the movie, and I don't care. We had somebody walk in, our friend Jeff, and said if this movie came out today and they were in detention, it couldn't be filmed because people would just be on their phones in detention the whole time and not talk to each other.
True.
But that's a pretty good, astute point. But at the same time, the feelings that everybody has, the jock, the burnout, the rich kid, the goth girl, and the nerd, they all still exist today, and everybody knows them, or maybe you are one of them.
Yeah, that's the nice thing, is that I think this movie holds up in the sense that you can figure out all of the archetypes very quickly. I was in high school from 2013 to 2017. All of these people are still there. Like, I knew Benders who were absolutely terrifying, and I knew Claires who I loathed. More on Claire in just a second. The one character aspect that I think is very funny to look on with 2025 eyes is just how much of a square Emilio Estevez is in this movie. He is such and there's no other way to describe it. It'll sound like political commentary, but it's not. He's just such a product of Ronald Reagan's America, and it's so funny to look at. Like, when they start smoking weed, and I'm somebody, I've never smoked weed. I'm straight edge. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke weed, but I'm all for people that do. It sometimes makes you look pretty damn cool, and sometimes I'm a little jealous of it. But they pull out weed, and I have his quote written down. I want to be sure that I depict this accurately. He says when they pull out weed, quote, "Yo, wastoid, you're not going to blaze up in here," end quote. It's the least cool any jock has ever sounded. I wanted to shove him in a locker. He is the character that, like, I went to high school with jocks. They really liked weed. They were really into it.
Well, that's the difference, because today jocks do. Even in my high school, a lot of my jocks, they smoked cigarettes, like not just weed. When I was on the football team, these guys lit up cigarettes. I'm like, damn, what is this, like 1960s NFL? But I think that was, again, an exaggeration of how his dad had formed him into, you're going to be the supreme athlete. And that's the thing, too, is you realize in the movie that everybody's dad and mom is an a-hole, or at least to the point of everybody.
From the kid's perspective, they are.
Everybody had a problem with your parents, and everybody does have a problem with their parents.
Yeah,
not everybody's really like their parents.
No, I mean, I love my parents to death, but I'm saying is that they all bonded over their parents and having the problems with them.
It's unfortunate that it's a part of life, but it's really hard to be 16 and think, man, my parents are awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not something that typically happens. I have one huge complaint about this movie I want to get to in a second, but I do want to ask both of you the question. Kenzie, I'll start with you. Which character do you feel like you're most like in this movie?
Wow. That's a good question.
Admittedly, as I was watching it, I was trying to place both of you in it. There's not a huge Kenzie K character. There's nobody that I was like, that's her. But I'm curious from your perspective who you would say that you are in this movie.
There's not lack of diversity, I suppose.
No.
If you go to 1985.
No, you know what, Kenzie? You're wrong, because it's really obvious who you are in this movie.
Who am I? Please tell me, because I don't relate to any of them, I can honestly say.
Not by being a burnout, but you're Bender. You're totally Bender in this.
Explain, Brian, explain.
Bender is loud. He's opinionated. He doesn't back down from anybody. He knows he's going to make it no matter what, and everybody puts him down. His dad puts him down, puts a cigar in his arm for spilling paint in the garage, but nothing will stop Bender. That is you, Kenzie.
I'll take Bender, I suppose.
Yeah. Except for the weed part and all that.
I never smoked weed, but I definitely had a middle finger up to everybody in high school and didn't care, so I suppose.
Yeah, you're Bender.
Okay.
Minus the weed burnout aspect of him.
Yeah.
Brian,
okay.
Brian, who are you?
Well, it's weird because I played guitar, and I was in a band, and I played sports, so I was in all those people too. But really, I'm Brian because I'm a nerd at a heart. I'm the guy that is as insecure and took the telescope out and wrote things I saw in the sky. I was the nerd, even though I played basketball and football and played guitar in a band.
I felt the same way, and we grew up similar interests, similar hobbies. I think in 2025 eyes, there's way more Brians that exist in schools right now, Brian the character, than Bender or Andrew or even either of the girls. I think that archetype of feeling so much pressure to succeed has greatly skyrocketed in the last 40 years, which is a little sad, but that character is played incredibly well.
People also make fun of you less for working hard and being good at school.
It's actually cool to try.
They're like, oh, you loser, you finished homework? That doesn't really happen anymore.
That's true. So before I give my rating, there was one thing in this movie that happened that offended me so greatly.
Dude, you had to have some kind of bad take.
I've got to, look, it's my honest review. I've watched war movies during this segment where I feel like there have been characters in those war movies that are less evil than what I saw. Molly Ringwald's character, Claire, is so awful. She is such a terrible, terrible person. The character is well written, but the character is a monster. She is so mean, and she is so stuck up, and she is such a prude, and she is the type of person that growing up would make me feel bad about myself just for my simple existence. And it all compounds into this final scene where she gives the goth girl, Allison, she gives her this preppy, yuppie, Reagan-approved makeover.
Second mention of Reagan in this one, too,
Could you relax a little on that?
Calm down.
It made me sick to my stomach seeing Allison get this makeover. Allison was the most beautiful character in the movie. I had such a crush on her for the first 90 minutes when she looked like a goth girl that would hang out with me and listen to Echo and the Bunnymen and the Smiths, and they gave her this makeover. It made me sick to my stomach. How dare they take her character away from her like that? It's the most offended I've ever been watching a movie.
Relax. That's such the wrong viewpoint of that. It's insane.
No, because she had to conform and she had to become one of them, and she's not one of them.
She was a girl with zero friends, okay?
And stay true to yourself. If you're a girl out there with zero friends, keep on doing you.
Hey, you don't know what it's like, especially at that time. It is very hard to figure out how to do your hair and makeup correctly. So F you, Case, because you don't understand this. And if you didn't have sisters, and then back then there wasn't like a TikTok tutorial, okay, and then you didn't have a lot of friends, she wanted to be a bad bitch, okay? She wanted to be able to do it. It's very tricky. She didn't have the confidence to do it. She didn't have the confidence to mess up. She finally met a girl. Molly Ringwald finally calmed down, a little less bitchy at the end, gave her a makeover. She's like, thank you. You have no idea how hard it is to learn how to do that stuff. Everyone thinks that girls should just know how to do it. It's like a second full-time job.
Yeah, also, Molly Ringwald, who, Case described her how she was typecast for the role. Perfect. Everybody was so perfect for this role.
Perfectly casted, yeah.
Yes.
Perfectly casted. And at lunch, she eats sushi. And I got to say, I never even heard of sushi until about 2004. Like, I didn't know what sushi... And this is a movie in the 80s where she was eating sushi.
That is pretty forward in the 80s. Like, she was a movement.
Yeah.
All the people in detention are like, you brought what? What is that? And it's like, no, that's awesome. My high school cafeteria had sushi in it.
Oh, man.
It did?
Public high school, by the way. Let's all relax on my upbringing. Public high school had sushi.
Did they really?
It was pretty nice.
Yeah, it was. I did okay.
A couple points before you give your review of The Breakfast Club. It was filmed at Maine North High School in Des Plaines, Illinois, and at Glenbrook North High School in Northbrook, Illinois, because Maine North, I think that closed, and then they used some of the outer scenes for Glenbrook North. And also, Judd Nelson, the Kenzie character, the Bender minus the burnout.
Kenzie character.
He stayed in character, I read, for the movie so much off the set when they were not filming that it drove John Hughes nuts. He was Bender all the time to the point where even though he knows he killed it in the movie and made it a historic performance, John Hughes said he would never work with Judd Nelson again. And he never did.
There was a proposed sequel where they have a high school reunion and they all come back and are in different spots in their life. And part of the reason it didn't happen was that Judd Nelson was so difficult to work with on the first Breakfast Club that they didn't want to do a second one.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
He was so good.
He was so good.
Because John Cusack was up for that role. And because all those 80s, the Brat Pack actors. Listen, love John Cusack to death, great Chicagoan and is awesome in all movies, but no one could have pulled that off like Judd Nelson. No one could have done that like Kenzie. That's a
They could have
compliment.
just casted me since you were so difficult to work with.
That's right. Oh man.
All right. Look, Brian, what are we gonna rate this review out of 10 on?
Detention slips?
I love it. That's why I asked you. I knew you'd come up with some gold.
Yeah.
Look, this is a movie that is very good. I would not quite call it a great movie. It's not that it does anything wrong. It's just watching it with 2025 eyes. I've seen other coming-of-age films. I've seen other high school films. I've seen teens be real on camera. But there is an undeniable truth that this movie holds up, that this movie is a classic. This movie is essential viewing. It is 7 detention slips out of 10. And how dare they transform the goth girl the way they did? They should be ashamed of themselves.
Good Lord. You know, we couldn't be appropriate without leaving with playing one of the best scenes in the movie that had the great actor Paul Gleason, who played Dwayne Johnson in Die Hard, Detective Dwayne, who you know from only Die Hard, but he's in a lot of great movies. The detention scene where he keeps giving Bender another week of detentions and, like Kenzie would do, doesn't back down, stays in his face and says, "Shut up, give me another one. I don't care."
You're not fooling anybody, Bender. The next screw that falls out is going to be you.
Eat my shorts.
What was that?
Eat my shorts.
That's Kenzie.
You just bought yourself another Saturday, mister.
Crushed.
You just bought one more right there.
Well, I'm free the Saturday after that. Beyond that, I'm gonna have to check my calendar.
Cut! Because it's going to be filled. We'll keep going. You want another one? Say the word. Just say the word. Instead of going to prison, you'll come here. Are you through?
No.
I'm doing society a favor.
So?
That's another one right now. I've got you for the rest of your natural-born life if you don't watch your step. You want another one?
Yes.
You got it. You got another one right there. That's another one, pal.
Cut it out.
You through?
Not even close.
bud.
Good. You got one more right there.
You really think I give a
Another. You through?
How many is that?
That's 7, including the one when we first came in and you asked whether Barry Manilow knew that he raided his closet.
Now it's 8. You stay out of it.
Excuse me, sir, it's 7.
Shut up, Pee-wee.
Kenzie, is that not you if that was going on to you?
Honestly, now that you play that scene, the way my mouth has gotten me in so much trouble my entire life. Absolutely me.
God, I wanted to be Bender so bad in high school, and I just took it when the principal
I couldn't
would say
stop being Bender in high school. It sucked.
Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.